You're listening to Adam the Movie Guy, and I'm presenting another Grindhouse-style episode. Warning, the episode you're about to listen to contains strong language, crude sexual humor, and an unhinged host. So basically everything fun. Also, you guys like that? That was my radio voice I was trying to do there. Anyway, enjoy. Welcome everyone to another soon-to-be off-the-rails episode of Adam the Movie Guy. And on this episode, I want to list 7 horror franchises that I believe are underrated and don't get talked about enough. That's not to say they're all gems, which I know for one franchise in particular on my list, you guys are going to think I've lost what few brain cells I have left in my fucking head. Not that I started off with that many anyway, so there's that. They're not in any particular order, so the sequence of me stating the franchise doesn't mean jack, so I'm not putting any above the others as I go along. The reason behind this episode is that I want to do something to bridge the gap between this episode and my currently in the works Bride of Frankenstein review episode. I'm about 70-75% down with that one, so hopefully I get it done by this Friday, which I'm aiming for. But in the meantime, I wanted to get something out there that was fun and came up with this episode. So, let's get started. Starting off with the first underrated horror franchise, the Leprechaun series. These movies are pure dumb fun and I absolutely love them for it. It helps that they know exactly what they are and don't try to act like they're fucking Shakespeare. And I love how the sequels just got crazier with each installment. The first was mostly a self-contained story set in an old house. The second is about the leprechaun trying to get laid and find a bride, which is also my personal favorite in the series, with the relationship between the main guy and his drunk of an uncle being entertaining, and the main girl and planned bride of the leprechaun, played by Siobhan Durkin. I mean, damn. They did not have to make her that fine, but they did.
She was hot as shit. I'm talking hot as shit.
The third film is The Leprechaun in Las Vegas. The fourth film is Leprechaun in Space. Yeah, that's right. They take the little bastard into space and it's fun as hell. The fifth and sixth ones in the series, and brace yourselves on this one, guys. Like, seriously. They take the leprechaun to the hood. Yeah, you heard me right. The leprechaun is in the fucking hood for 5 and 6.
I come from the land of the Irish Spring. Dublin's the place where I learned my thing. From the Emerald Isle to your place in the hood. On the man of green, come to do no good. Left in the hood, come to do no good. Left in the hood, come to do no good.
Then came the remake Leprechaun Origins, which is a confusing-ass title. I don't know why they did that. That it also had jack shit to do with the franchise. And then they did a requel that ignored all the old sequels and served as a direct sequel to the original movie and set in the original house. Unfortunately, the last 2 films were missing the most important ingredient to the series, Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun. Davis played the Leprechaun 6 total times and was the absolute best thing about these films. I pray he comes back for at least one more Leprechaun movie. My favorite quotes from him are the pogo stick kill from part 1.
This old lep, he played one. He played pogo on his lump. Teach you to steal me gold.
And the other is his drinking contest quote with the drunk uncle in part 2.
Drink what you want. Drink what you're able. If you're drinking with me, you'll be under the table.
Last thing I want to say about this franchise is that there were a lot of unmade ideas from the films in the series that I wish saw the light of day, and when I cover the series in depth someday, I'll mention them. Underrated horror franchise 2, the Psycho series. The fact that this franchise doesn't get as much love as it should is a fucking crime against humanity, I tell you. Everybody only talks about the first film directed by the late great Alfred Hitchcock. God bless his soul, the guy made one hell of a film. but they act like the sequels don't exist, which dumbfounds me because Psycho 2 and 3 are fantastic movies that respect what the first film did and really make you sympathize with Norman. There was a fourth film as well, but that one was, take it or leave it for me. The remake with Vince Vaughn doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. Ugh. And there was the Bates Motel series, which was actually pretty great. I have a personal connection to these films and relate to Norman in certain aspects. The original Psycho movie was the last film I watched with my mom before she passed away. And like Norman, I know what it's like to care for a sick mother who you know after a certain point isn't going to recover and be what they previously were, and it just weighs heavy on your heart. Sorry to get so heavy. I usually like to keep these episodes, especially my Ruder and Cruder grindhouse style ones, like this lighthearted and funny, but I really can't help it when talking about this series in particular since I have a personal connection with it. But back to more lighthearted fare and on to Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, who played him in all 4 original Psycho films. Now, he truly understands the character of Norman and his acting is just phenomenal. He truly makes Norman such a sympathetic guy who deals with this mental illness and just wants to live a normal life. And unfortunately, his character is just destined for tragedy at every freaking turn. Listen to this legendary quote from Norman from the original Psycho, which just sums up the character of Norman and the series as a whole to me.
It's not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
Yes. Sometimes just one time can be enough.
Now on to a franchise I'm sure I'm going to lose the majority of people on. Underrated franchise 3, the Wrong Turn series.
You're fucked in the head.
Yeah, I know you're absolutely correct in that assessment, but let me explain.
Alright, let's get this shit over with. Hey, calm down on the flash photography. I'm hungover as shit.
That was the audio of me coming back to work every Monday, but back on topic, the Wrong Turn series. I know aside from the original Part 2 and some people like the reboot, which in my opinion, while good, didn't feel like Wrong Turn to me. But the rest of the sequels, Parts 3, 4, 5, and 6, are all often called shit. But you know what? When you get used to eating shit after a certain point, you start to like it, which was the case for me for watching these films. They just became a guilty pleasure horror series that was filled with gore, cannibal killers, and some fantastic amounts of female nudity, so at least you get something to look at other than brutal violence. Although, for Part 6, they took the sex aspect and kind of went overboard, and this is me of all people saying that. They just wanted to make a porno instead of a horror film, and I could forgive them for that if it was a good one, but it was just fucking gross and would even have AI judging you.
You sick fuck. You're gross. You make me sick to my algorithm.
One last thing I want to say about the series is that the teaser trailer for Part 5 is what I ripped off from my normal episode intro from almost word for word. Take a listen to it.
If this shocks you, if this offends you, then you are in the wrong fucking in my house now. Theater. Face your fear and dare to own the most gruesome wrong turn ever. Wrong Turn 5 on.
I absolutely love that teaser trailer since it's so in your face and honest about what kind of movie this is. Just fun kills and random unnecessary sex scenes for the sake of it. I can respect that honesty of the marketing and sense of not giving a fuck what people think. I mean, they know this shit ain't high art and they admit that. Jaws, that's a high art. Alien, that's high art. Top Gun Maverick, that's high art. Shout out to my brother-in-law Mark, who I saw Top Gun Maverick in theaters twice with. Damn, that was a great movie that surprised the hell out of me. I mean, holy shit, 30 plus years for a sequel and it's this good, I gotta give it credit. Underrated horror franchise 4, the Omen series. Now, the first two Omen films were fantastic, particularly the first one. While part 3 was disappointing, part 4 might as well not fucking exist. The remake was good and has Liev Schreiber in it, which is always a bonus, but they just couldn't capture the magic of the OG. And finally, the prequel to the original 1976 film, The First Omen, which I just saw recently in theaters not that long ago, was really fucking good. And I really hope they make more sequels to it since it opened the door for an alternative timeline style sequel like the Halloween movies did with their series. Now, these movies often get overshadowed by the first Exorcist film and Rosemary's Baby when it comes to satanic horror, and honestly, it's bullshit. Just listen to this unforgettable moment from the original film when the nanny hangs herself at Damien's party in front of everyone and crashes through the window.
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
This is one of the most iconic moments in horror and forever will remain in my memory. Underrated horror franchise 5, the Jeepers Creepers series. There are exactly 4 movies as of this recording in the series, and while I admit only the first 2 of them were good, while the third was very disappointing and the fourth one, dear God. I finished watching it and this was pretty much my thoughts on the movie. Take a listen.
I think this movie is giving me AIDS. I think if I took a blood test right now, I would test positive for AIDS.
Exactly. The movie was fucking sickening and wasted such an amazing horror icon. And yeah, that's right. I consider the Creeper a horror icon since everything about him is scary and cool as fuck. He's like this humanoid bat demon man who dresses like an old Western character, drives a creepy-ass truck from the 1940s, makes weapons out of the remains of his victims, and as for the rest of the bodies, after eating certain parts of you he wants for himself, he mutilates your corpse and decorates his lair with it. My favorite aspect of the Creeper is his human traits and mannerisms, which only serve to make him more unnerving. My favorite example being the Creeper whistling his own theme song casually after decapitating someone. Take a listen. The Creeper is a horror icon, and I pray we get one last genuinely good movie in this series, since parts 1 and 2 were so damn good. Underrated horror franchise 6, the Sleepaway Camp series. This is the other summer camp slasher series that needs as much love as the Friday the 13th series. The killer Angela Baker was played by Felissa Rose in the first movie, and the 5th movie returned to Sleepaway Camp. Less said about the 4th one. That was a fucking failure in all aspects. But in parts 2 and 3, Angela was played iconically by Pamela Springsteen, Bruce Springsteen's baby sister. Swear to God, I didn't make that up. Look it up. That's Bruce Springsteen's sister in parts 2 and 3 as the killer. Pamela's portrayal of the character Angela Baker turns her into a wisecracking Freddy Krueger type, except she punishes those she deems immoral, even for the pettiest shit. A good example being Angela killing one character off with a drill, and a funny bit they did in part 2.
What are you looking for? A gun? No. A drill.
There's some great kills in the first 3 films, and unlike Friday the 13th, there's some actual campers in these movies and not just counselors or counselors in training. Yes, I know there were campers in Friday 1 in the prologue, and Friday 6 had campers as well, but that was it. And they had no importance to the plot whatsoever in part 6, aside from one wholesome moment with the little camper girl Nancy and the snarky little shit friends who occasionally threw out a smart-ass remark. Overall, the first 3 Sleepaway Camp movies are great, and I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of the original someday. Although, it'd be interesting to see how they handle certain elements. If you know, you know. Now on to my final underrated franchise for the episode. Underrated franchise number 7, the Ju-on, aka the CRUDE series. These Japanese ghost films are terrifying and really get under my skin. The ghosts Kayoko and Toshio are an iconic horror mother-son duo, and the idea if you step inside their haunted house in Japan, no matter where you go, you're cursed, and she and Kayoko and Toshio's ghosts will kill you no matter what is absolutely terrifying. And it might not even be within days. They could haunt you for months or even years before they finally kill you. That's fucking terrifying. And to make matters worse, her curse spreads like a plague. So let's say you get cursed, then you go home. Everyone with you will also be cursed and will die as well, and it just keeps spreading. The sounds that Toshio makes out of his mouth where he imitates a cat are just unsettling. Take a listen to it. And as for Kayoko, her iconic death rattle croak she makes chills me to the bone when I hear it. Take a listen. Nearly every film in the series is solid with maybe 2 or 3 exceptions, particularly the 2020 American reboot. Ugh, talk about a lazy, uninspired fucking cash grab that didn't even have Kayoko and Toshio in the goddamn movie, except for the opening scene, and that was 5 fucking seconds of screen time. Oh my god. I was fucking ashamed of myself after buying a ticket to see that piece of shit. My mother and father were rolling in their ashes in shame for me paying to see that movie. Oh, and the stupid prick who made it, who thought it was actually good, thought he could make several sequels out of it.
Thank you, fuck you, bye.
Yeah, you're funny, pal. You're funny. Well, guys, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and stay tuned for my next one. And fingers crossed I get off my ass to finish the Bride of Frankenstein review since I'm aiming for a Friday release, so be on the lookout for it. Take care, everyone, and until next time, this has been Adam the Movie Guy saying see you later.